And good evening, everyone. ESS Empire State Sports proudly presents the Wise Guys Sports Talk Show. Your host tonight, Joey Rio, Dave Bartlett, and myself, Pete Goslaw. And our special guest from Florida, he's cheating on us, Steve Yianoukos. So welcome to the program, Steve.
Great to be here, guys. Thanks for having me.
Longtime Potsdam guy, born and raised there, worked at Clarkson AD. We'll get into that shortly. But you're cheating on us because you're down in Florida. We were just talking off screen there, Steve, that literally 100-degree difference from the time you left here to down in Florida.
Huh? Yeah, Pete, I went back last week. I had some business to take care of, but I left on the 13th, I guess it was 16 below when I got up and got in the car. And then it was 84 degrees when I got off the plane here. So it was a 100-degree difference in the day. Quite a difference.
Getting any rounds of golf in down there?
Yeah, that's one of my favorite pastimes. I try to play golf probably every other day. And then another game I picked up was pickleball. So I've been playing that a lot too.
Yeah, I heard that's big down there.
Good for us old folks.
Yeah. I want to turn over to one AD to ask the other AD some questions. So there you go, Joey.
Sure.
Well, Steve, it's funny you mentioned pickleball because that's my father lives in the Villages. I go down in normal conditions, go down twice a year to visit him, and that's the one thing you can always hear when I get up to take a morning walk is that click, 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 click of the return of the pickleball on the paddle. So
Yeah,
and it's all over the place down there.
They've got numerous. Everybody's just building courts left and right. My son lives in an area about 10 miles away, and I think they've got 12 courts going, and they're going all the time.
Well, Steve, part of the reason that we brought you on is not only because you have a connection to North Country sports, being the AD at Clarkson for such a long time, and that's the first thing I want to dive into. But one of the things we're going to get into later for our viewers is tomorrow. Now we're taping this on Sunday, February 21st. So tomorrow is Monday, February 22nd. And will be the 41st anniversary of the USA versus Soviet Union hockey game at Lake Placid. And for those that have watched this show, it's come up a few times that I was in the crowd as a 10 or 11-year-old kid. And we had an idea to do a show with somebody else that was there. And Steve was the Zamboni driver. So we're really looking forward to talking about and asking some questions about what the heck it was like driving the Zamboni, because I remember it just being nuts in between each period. But let's save that for the end. Let's talk a little bit about Steve's life up here in the North Country. So Steve, talk about your pathway, where you grew up, where you went to school, some people that impacted you, and how you ended up at Clarkson, and any other jobs along the way that you'd like to mention.
Sure. Well, I was a Potsdam native, born, grew up in Potsdam, went through the Potsdam school system, Potsdam Sandstoner, played baseball and hockey during my high school career. When I graduated from high school, went to Clarkson. It was kind of funny because I was planning on going to Syracuse, and then my dad wasn't doing real well. He had some issues, so I decided to stay home. Of course, hindsight's great, but it turned out for the best. Really enjoyed my time there. Started out, I worked as the recreation director for the town and village of Potsdam. Did that for 11 years. I came on board when they were just building Pine Street, opened that up in the fall of 72. And that was, real rewarding. I was a community guy, Rotary Club, all the local service organizations. And then in 84, got a job I was the executive officer of the athletic department when I started out. So the AD at the time was Jack Hantz, was up there working for, a little training period, doing both jobs. Then he got sick and had to step down. So Bill O'Flaherty and I took over the athletic department. Very rewarding. Enjoy, the kids are great. Student athletes are great. the best part of the job is it keeps you young. You know, you can watch them come in as deer in the headlight looking freshmen, gaining maturity, and then leaving as young adults ready for the real world. So that was a really enjoyable part of my job at Clarkson, along with the, great people to work with. As you know, Joey, coaches are great to be around, and the student athletes are great to be around. So it was a great experience for me.
And how long did you do that, Steve? How long were you at Clarkson as the
I was
AD?
I was at Clarkson as AD 15 years, but I was in the athletic department 35.
Wow.
So I went up through the ranks, all the various administrative positions, and took
So,
over.
so talk about, because this strikes me at that time, I was a mailman in Potsdam, probably
Were
delivery
you
of mail,
really?
Steve. Yeah, for 15 years, I was a letter carrier in Potsdam. So I was in town, and at that time, the change from Walker to Cheel,
Yes.
I mean, Cheel is just, it's beautiful. And I
Right.
think back to those old Walker days. It was so cold in there, and the classic old barn. But talk about that transition from Walker to Cheel.
Yeah, it was, if you remember the old Manley Field House at Syracuse, where Syracuse basketball played, never
Yep.
lost a game there. Everybody was worried about moving in the Carrier Dome, too big, too spacious. And then they went in there and loved it. So to me, leaving Walker to Cheel was similar to that. Everybody was worried about losing the home ice advantage, too big a place, could we fill it? How many seats to build? We came up with 3,000 seats. Everybody thought that was all way too big for the North Country, but we proved otherwise, and the place was packed for years and been a great addition. And recently, just as I was leaving, they put in a $28 million expansion into the building. All new locker rooms for the men and women, new weight facilities. There's 2 weight rooms there that are about, I don't know exactly, 16,000 square feet between the 2 rooms. So they've got the state of the art training facilities there. They've got 2 strength coaches that work full time. They've got a shooting area now for the team, measures your shot, how fast, whether you were accurate or not, all computerized. Training room is like something out of Canton Potsdam Hospital. Everything they did was first class with the operation. Unfortunately, nobody's been able to get in to see it. So when it hopefully opens up in the fall, everybody will get a chance to get in there.
Something that strikes me, Steve, is obviously Clarkson, St. Lawrence, Division I in hockey, but Division III in the rest of the sports. Talk about, is that a big deal as the athletic director dealing with 2 different divisions? Because there's not many schools in the United States that deal with those differences, or was it a big deal at all?
Yeah, it was, Joey. It's, there's only 12 schools in the whole country that have Division III, Division I. And, we bump heads against all the Big Ten schools now, the ECAC. It's a great exposure. From the standpoint, you have, 2 different sets of rules. Division I student athletes are eligible for full scholarships. Division III student athletes are only, they're based on financial need of the family. So there is a big difference in that regard. To me, the Division III student athlete loves their sport, playing it because they love it. Most, the student athletes at Clarkson are good students, so they have time management skills that I can't even believe what they get done in a day. Division I student athletes, it's a lot of them on the men's side think they're going to go to the NHL and are working towards that goal. The women are looking to make the Olympic teams, and they've been very successful. I would say there are some minor adjustments to make, but overall, I think both sides of the house work very well together.
Did you find it, so like when you're playing, I guess the best way to Potsdam plays St. Lawrence Central in a high school game, the pressure's on Potsdam.
Right.
Do you see where I'm going with this?
Yeah,
So when like Clark, did you ever get that sense that boy, people like beating Clarkson, people like beating St. Lawrence in the D3 sports because of that situation. Did you ever notice that?
Right. Let me back up just a little, kind of give you a little background on our Division III league. It's called the Liberty League.
Yeah.
And all the schools in there are, like academic institutions. You got RPI, you got Union, you got Ithaca, St. Lawrence, University of Rochester, RIT, Hobart. So they're all very high-end academic schools. So I would say it's, we're on an equal par with them. Everybody's about, it's not there's some sports you're not good in, other sports you're good at, but most of the teams are very equal and are very dedicated. Give you a small sample size on the academic end. Our Division III student athletes have a higher grade point average than the average Clarkson student. Our Division I hockey teams, both men and women, I'm not sure if you know what the 4.0 system. The 4.0 is a straight A average, 3.0 is a B. Both men's and women's hockey team had a GPA of 3.4, which is unheard of. Usually you hear the stories about kids never get through college, the basketball and the football guys, but Division I hockey at Clarkson is, very high academic standard. They play in a league with all the 6 Ivies, and then the 6 9-Ivies are Quinnipiac, RPI, Union, Colgate, St. Lawrence, and us. So it's a real competitive league, both on Division I and Division III sides of the house.
And so, Steve, I assume that coaches are mostly involved with the recruiting and stuff, but is that part is the job of AD in an institution like Clarkson where you're helping? Are you helping the coaches to recruit, or they need your help in some form or fashion? You're there for them, or
Right.
Are you involved in that at all?
I would say, the coaches are the prime recruiters, coaches and their assistants. Over the years, I've talked to numerous prospective student athletes when they're on campus with their parents, and, kind of give them a side of, the whole side of the school. But I would say the coaches are the prime movers and shakers of the recruiting, and that's what they get, that's their team. So the difference is, high school is a kid, you have your classes coming up through the ranks. College, you got to go get them. And they're, it's heavily competitive out there on getting those top-notch student athletes. I'll give you one example though. He was like our golden child in the Division III world. Local kid, John Coleman. He was very unusual. He played basketball and baseball, which is not very common anymore because of the seasons are so long. But he was the rookie of the year in the league for both sports. His senior year, he was player of the year in both sports in the league. He won the Division III Student Athlete of the Year for baseball his senior year, and Division III Student Athlete of the Year for basketball. And there's 180,000 Division III student athletes in the country, and he was the #1 Division III student athlete. Quite an accomplishment. Another thing he won, the NCAA gives out what they call the top 10 awards. So that is Division I, Division II, Division III. 50% on athletics, 35% on academics, 15% on citizenship. There's 340,000 Division I, II, and III athletes in the country, and he won one of the 10 awards. So we were very proud of that. We've never had anybody close to that type of student athlete. And he's right here from the North Country.
That says a lot also for the college also, doesn't it, Steve?
Yeah. Oh yeah, no question. He, I think he had 1 B+ and the rest were all A's. He had like a 3.96 GPA. We were trying to figure out who the professor was that gave him the B+.
He's fired.
Well, he's fired, yeah. No longer with the system.
Yeah.
So Steve, as far as AD, I know Joey participates as far as high school. He goes to a lot of functions as far as games.
Yep.
Was that a requirement for you, and if it wasn't anyway, you must have seen your share of games there.
No question. I don't know if it's a requirement, but I made it a top priority. If you talk to our coaches and our student athletes, if I was in town, I was at the contest. if I wasn't away on business, I haven't got a number, but I've missed very few games in the 35 years I was there. I just thought it was very important to support the student athlete, have the parents see that you were there and cared, and that, I really looked out for their welfare.
So this is a loaded question. I got to ask it.
I'm used to them, don't worry.
Yeah. So in your tenure, all those games you saw, what was the one that pops out of your head the most? I mean, the one that really stands out in the crowd.
Okay, I got a couple of them I got to go to. On the women's basketball side, we came from, basically when we started, we were just a recreation pickup team. And then we got to the point we were qualified for the NCAAs. We hosted the quarterfinal game at our place. We were down 10-0 right out of the chute. We had the pep band there. The gym was packed. Came back and beat them by 20 points and went to the Final Four. So that was a real crowning moment. Another one, you'd have to take the women's hockey, the national championship games. I mean, the first one we won, we beat Minnesota. They've got probably 60,000 students. We got 3,000. The next one we won, we beat Wisconsin in a nail biter. And then we beat Ohio State and Colgate to win the third. So those are real crowning moments. On the men's side, winning the ECAC 2 or 3 times was, those are big moments. They were very, very rewarding.
Well, and Steve, speaking of ECAC, that was something else I wanted to talk about, because we're going to talk a little bit about Placid later. Talk about the time when the switch was made, because the ECAC tournament used to be in Boston along with Hockey East, if I remember right. And
Yep.
I remember when they made the change to Lake Placid, that a lot of true bluers were like, boy, this stinks. I always heard the great stories about Boston, but boy, for me at my age at that time, when you made the move to Lake Placid, it was so easy and it was such a great time. And you guys won the first year.
Yeah.
It was in Lake Placid, and
Right.
and that had me hooked. I became a Clarkson season ticket holder, and I went to every ECAC I could until I really dove into being a basketball coach. And I talked a little bit about that change from Boston to Placid.
Sure.
Were you number one? Were you involved in that? Did you guys have any say in that? How did you guys feel about all that?
Well, it was what happened then. I don't know if you remember, but there used to be one big league. Hockey East and the ECAC were basically one league. The ECAC pulled away. The 6 Ivies and our 6 schools decided that they wanted to separate, start their own identity. So the Hockey East schools stayed in Boston. They were all, around that footprint. We came back and decided we wanted to go to Lake Placid. It was tough to get to for a lot of the members, but for, the North Country teams, it was the best place going, because our fans could pack up, go up there at a moment's notice and enjoy a great weekend, usually in March when the weather's breaking a little. So we were very, very favorable. And then we got to the point where the league thought we needed a bigger footprint. They wanted to go to Albany. They thought it was more central. We went down there for a few years, and we went to Atlantic City for a few, but it just didn't work out. So at that point, we went back to Lake Placid, and it's been great ever since, especially for the North Country schools.
Without a doubt. And I know when they first started in '93, I think Clarkson had went the first 7-8 years in a row that it was there. I mean, it was just a given that Clarkson was going to be there. And it was always just a great weekend, especially if Cornell made it, if SLU made it, if Vermont made it, and you got some schools that were really within driving distance of Lake Placid. But it's just a great venue for that. And I always wondered about that, because I do know some people that they just enjoyed making that trip to Boston back in the day.
I think once they went to Lake Placid, they liked that just as much. It was, you got to remember in the 90s, we had some pretty good players. We had some pretty good teams running through that 90 to 2000 range. I think we had like 8 or 10 NHL players off those teams. And, you go to Placid, the nice part about that is you park your car, you don't have to move it. You're walking everywhere, restaurants, adult entertainment, anywhere you want to go. It's all, it's just so much easier for us.
Well, that's a perfect segue into the other reason we brought you in, because you got three guys here that love Lake Placid, and
Four guys.
four guys,
Just a little.
and just so that people do know, I got my tickets from my game.
Geez,
Okay.
look at that.
I kept those.
Curiosity, how much you pay for that?
Oh my goodness. Well, the ticket price on the ticket is $56 in 1980.
That was big money back then.
But my father was manager of Key Bank in Winthrop at the time, and Key Bank was a major sponsor. So we went for nothing. He went to a lot of events. In fact, I got a couple of Eric Hyden's speed skating. He went and saw that. So, but obviously tomorrow is the 41st anniversary of that game, and I was a 10 and 11-year-old boy, and when my father told me that we're going to watch a hockey game, and I was a basketball kid, I wasn't even playing hockey. I didn't know what I was watching until, as the years have gone by, obviously probably arguably the greatest single sporting event in American history.
Yeah.
And Steve, you were the Zamboni driver for not just that game, but the whole Olympics. How did you get that gig?
Well, I get that asked a lot. I know Butch Martin was the arena manager then. He was also a high school hockey official, and I was running Pine Street. And you got to remember, Placid's like 3,000 people. He didn't have a lot of Zamboni drivers to pick from, and all of a sudden, he had 3 sheets of ice to cover the outdoor rink, and not enough people to do it. So he said, "Would you mind coming up and helping me for a few weeks?" I said, "Yeah, sure." Never expecting what was going to happen, but I was more than willing to go up just to experience it. So I was housed, you're probably familiar, you got the 1980 rink, and then behind it, perpendicular to it in the back is a practice rink. So we had 2 Zambonis going out of there, and that's where I was housed most of the time. Did the outdoor oval once, right before Hayden was winning one of his 5 gold medals, but that's how I got up there, Butch Martin.
So
when you do the 80 or did you do the 80 and the 32 or just strictly the 80 rink, Steve?
I didn't do I just did the 80 rink.
Oh, okay.
32 was, it was hard getting back and forth. So there were some people there, but I was pretty much at the 80 rink.
I know about how hard it is. I worked security up there for 2 years. I ended up actually staying and sleeping in the locker room. There's a locker room off between those 2 rings that nobody, that I used to sleep on the cot in there numerous nights. I know exactly. What's that?
It's tough.
Oh yeah.
You probably came straight from the Arena Grill back to the locker room.
I don't know anything about that.
Arena Grill, a little restaurant down below there.
I'm familiar, but I'm pleading the fifth. But anyway,
okay.
It was difficult because I was up there for the Can-Am tournaments and working security up there for that. So there was a lot of people up there. I couldn't imagine being up there for the 80s, in the 80s for the Olympics. I know Joey wants to ask you 20,000 more questions, but I'll just ask you one. Sure. Did you know at that particular time that we were on the verge of possible history that day and that on that night of that game?
Well, as you play the day back, everybody, there was big excitement for the game itself. But you got to remember they got beaten 10-1 the week before at Madison Square Garden. So there was hope, but I don't think anybody in their wildest dreams expected to pull that off. And then, when the game started and the place was just rocking, it was wilder than wild. I was doing the ice after warmups before the first period, and they started that USA chant, and it actually felt like the building was shaking. It was so loud in there. And, and then as the game went on, they kept it close, and then scored the tire, I don't know, with 11 minutes left, and the winner with 10. But even when they scored that goal with 10 minutes left to go up by a goal, you didn't feel really good about it because they could score 5 goals in 5 minutes. And the last 10 minutes seemed like they took 2 days to play. The clock never moved, it seemed.
Yeah.
So I would say, the excitement was there, but nobody had the expectations. Not unless unless they're fibbing a little bit.
I couldn't imagine. I know that I can speak for the rest of us that were sitting at home. Of course, Joey was right there, but everybody was sitting at home. We're just the nerves of we're up by one. It's like, man, can we hold this, that score? And I couldn't imagine being there or working there. So it must have been really impressive. And I get chills up my back now just thinking about the USA chant. I can still hear it in the back of my mind. It's got to be unbelievable.
I've got a couple tapes. There was an HBO special and some other things, and every once in a while I put those on. Still brings goosebumps to me when I watch those. It's phenomenal. There's a clip on the original ABC had the rights to the game. So when Arizioni scores the winning goal, the camera goes right to Herb Brooks on the bench, Herb Brooks and the trainer. And then there's a solo shot. There's a shot of me right after that. I got like a 1 second where I'm sitting there but you notice I'm not clapping real loud because, I didn't think the game was anywhere near being over.
Well, I would assume out of the 4 of us, don't tell me when you're flicking around the channels and you see Miracle, the movie, that you don't keep it there.
Yeah, you always watch a segment of it.
Yeah. Well, and even though I'm a basketball coach, Steve, great moments are born from great opportunity. Every time I've played in a championship game with my team, that line gets used to my kids, and I make sure that they know it came from Herb Brooks, not from me. But the pregame speech that's in the movie, I mean, I'm ready to go tear down a wall, and even though I can't skate, I have a feeling I could score a hat trick. I'm ready to go.
Our Clarkson coaches use, they on the road trips they put that movie in all the time.
Oh yeah, I totally
get soccer, basketball, anything. They still play it.
Yeah, for us, I'll pop in Hoosiers. It's the same feeling for me. If the Hoosiers is on, I'm watching it. But to think that, oh my goodness, to think that you were there. So describe, because the one thing I don't have a ton of memories because I was only 10, 11 years old. I remember being in there. I remember being with my dad. The one thing I remember as a kid was the carefree attitude of our fans, of the people in the rink in between periods. Now, in between periods, you were out in the ice cleaning it off, right? So did you notice that? I mean, I remember balloons being bounced around the crowd. Like, there was certainly a buzz because obviously I think the feeling was, hey, it's not 7-2 right now.
Right.
It's 3-2.
The longer the game went, the louder it got in there. That's what I remember. It just, when it was 3-2, like you said, people thought it was going to be 7-2. So there was the other thing I remember everywhere I looked, I think every state trooper that was in Placid was on duty at that rink. They were everywhere. I think they put their uniforms on just so they could get to them. Every aisleway was packed with policemen. That's all I remember. Everywhere I looked.
Well, I gotta ask, did you feel any well, first off, how much experience, Zamboni experience did you have prior to that? Obviously, like you said, you were at Pine Street. So
yeah, I drove, I was probably 10, 11 years at Pine Street. So I had my share.
Okay. And then, so did you feel any kind of pressure to, don't screw this up? You've done it for so long, but.
Oh yeah, it's different. Yeah, I definitely did. The worst one was, like I said, after warm-ups before the game started, it was just, the place was crazy. I just couldn't believe the noise, And the thing, when you're driving the Zamboni, everybody's staring at you. They're not looking at you, but they're looking at the Zamboni. You're driving around, you're like the little mouse in a cubicle going around those little things.
Yeah.
You look up and everybody, but nobody knows who you are. You're just doing the ice.
It's
Were there anything, did anything out of the ordinary or unusual occur during that game, during your part of cleaning the ice? And
I got one cute story for you. So at the end of the first period, so Mark Johnson breaks through the Russian defenseman, scores at the buzzer.
Mhm.
So I'm back getting the Zamboni, and as I'm driving through the little tunnel way to go to the ice, there's a huge curtain drop down. You had to duck under it. So I remember the moment like it was yesterday. I'm ducking under the curtain. The red light comes on, then the green light comes on, signifying the end of the period, and the place is just going wild. And I didn't get to see the goal, but that was the one thing I remember was watching that the goal was a good goal. That wasn't going to be, called back.
Nice.
I don't know. This isn't very good, Steve, but
Yep.
my father had the wherewithal. That's him going in for that goal at the end of the first period.
So you were down at the same end as the Zamboni.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. And every time I look at that photo, I'm like, I don't know how my father, this is 1980. It's not like not like iPhones of today. I mean, he had to have
Right.
And
camera there
there's
then.
there's a decent chance, granted it was only the end of the first period, but knowing the Riom name and knowing my dad, there's a decent chance there was at least a 6-pack in him by the end of the first period. So the fact that he got that photo, I don't know.
Good for him. Bring that picture up one more time, Joey, could you? I just want to see where you were sitting.
Yep. Give me 1 sec.
Oh, yeah, you were, okay, if you go right down on that picture, right down to ice level, that was about where we were sitting. They had the figure skating announcers had a platform set up right at ice level so they could interview the skaters coming out. That was the way they came out on off the ice. So the hockey announcers were up in the press box, Al Michaels and Ken Dryden. So we sat where the figure skating guys, we were right behind that net. So you had really good seats.
Yes, I did. And so here's a picture. Again, this is terrible. This is a terrible job. At least this is better than radio, but you're not going to be able to. So that's me, the little nerd kid in the toque and red coat. But the person next to me, my father said, "Hey, go get over." That was Scott Hamilton.
Oh, look at
this
that.
guy right here, Scott Hamilton, figure skater. So, yeah, and it's funny because a couple of years ago, I took my son up on the anniversary always falls during that midwinter school break.
Right. Yep.
Like this week was midwinter school break, and I took my son up on a pilgrimage, and I said, "Hey, my goal today is," I brought the tickets with me, and I said, "We're finding my seats that my dad and I sat in." Well, that section has been moved. Those seats aren't there anymore.
Oh. Right, that's wide open in there now.
Yep.
And I think the only time they had seats there for the longest was during the Olympics because they needed them all, but now they probably don't need that section.
So mentioning the fact, and here's a photo that my father, that's my dad and me, it's classic flannel from my dad.
Yeah.
So I gotta ask, I know what happened to my father, and I know I can say it, and he'll gladly be proud of me, but I'm pretty sure he had pretty sure. What's that?
Am I gonna give away secrets?
I don't know. But I'm about to tell you that he had such a good time after that game that the gold medal winning tickets that we had, well, we ended up having to watch the gold medal game from home.
Mother kept him home, wouldn't let him go up twice.
Well, I don't know if mom kept him home or his body kept him home. He stayed home.
You had a good time then, huh? And you were too young to drive, probably.
I was too young, but so I got to ask. I mean, what were you doing after that game? Did you go home? What was going on?
The one thing we had there was if you remember, everything in the kitchen sink got thrown on the ice after that game. So we were there probably 2 hours, or an hour, I guess. We didn't have that much time. There was another game after that I had to work. So, but outside they estimated somewhere between 50 and 70,000 people in downtown Lake Placid. You remember they took the vehicles off the road. You had to park in Saranac and Keene
Yep.
to get in there.
Bust in. Yep.
So it was just a mass of humanity outside.
So
So
Steve,
I bet
I got another question. Did you get any autographs? I mean, I gotta know. I mean, did you get autographs?
I didn't. I don't know why, but I like a lot of the guys, like Arizzione's roommate was a guy named Ricky Mahar at BU. Mahar's brother was our assistant coach at the time. So I was talking to those guys quite a bit. I never got any autographs. I got quite a few pictures, but I never got autographs.
Pictures are good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know what the reason was, but I did have one cute story. So the reason I got on the original movie Miracle on Ice, that little clip I was telling you about, that came up in all the replays. There was the broadcast crew was ABC. There was a guy who had the camera right down at the Zamboni entrance, and he was always getting in the way. But I said, take your time, get your pictures. I'll make up the time on the ice. And then his wife came up one day, so we snuck her in the back door and got her a seat right there where we sat. He says, I'm going to get you on TV. So after Arizioni scores the goal, I look out of the corner of my eye and he's got the camera in my face with the red light on. I said, oh, geez, I better start clapping. That was one story. The other one was I had a state trooper who was my security down there. He was from Hamburg, Buffalo, New York, and his son was a goalie, and he wanted to get his picture taken with Tretiak. So he didn't tell me till we beat the Russians Friday, right? So Saturday, the games were every other day. So Saturday was a practice day, and it was a gold medal days for the figure skating. So the guys are practicing in the morning. I said, yeah, we can get pictures. We can get a picture, no problem. So Russian practice is over. I flipped the doors open, waved Tretiak over. He's in that net. I look and I said, if you could see fear in a person's eyes, his eyes were like saucers. I couldn't figure out. And then he pointed up. All the KGB, the Secret Service, were coming down because if you remember back then, the Russians hadn't come over yet. And there was heavy rumors that they were going to defect. So they thought I was waving them off the ice to get them out of there.
Oh,
Grabbed the
geez.
camera and showed them to the KGB guys. And yeah, there's no mistaking them. They're like ex-Marine drill instructors. Showed them the camera and then everything calmed down. He went out and got his picture taken with Tretiak.
Wow.
That's a weird story. That's awesome.
I almost was in a little trouble there. And you remember, they didn't even bring over, Yakashev was their best player, and they didn't bring him over because they thought he was going to defect. But they came in the ice, they had their sweatsuits on, into the dressing room, practice was over, out sitting on a bench, KGB in front of them, KGB behind them, marching to the bus. Took them back to the Olympic Village. They never went anywhere. Hard for us to understand that, but that's
Yeah.
the way it was over there.
Well, I don't know if it was a HBO documentary or ESPN 30 for 30. I can't remember, but they had a documentary. Everybody always talks about us winning the game. And this documentary was about Soviet Union losing the game.
Right.
It
From the
was really
Russian
good.
standpoint, yeah, that was really good.
Yeah.
Was it Vasilyev, the defenseman that later came over? It took him forever to get over here, but he was a great defenseman. He came up through the North Country, Route 30 through North Creek, Long Lake with his daughter and kind of explained it from his side.
Yes. That was very good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They did a good job with it.
So Steve, I love Lake Placid. If somebody tells me, hey, you want to take a ride? I'm just going up to Placid. Even if it's just to go grocery shopping, I'll go. I love Lake Placid, and
It's a great town.
it is. It's literally, it's in our backyard. It's an hour and a half away, and it feels like you are away, even though you're only an hour and a half away. I've always loved it there, and so I got to ask you, whenever you make those return visits to Placid, because it sounds like you like it just as much. Number one, have you ever bumped in? Because I have, but have you ever bumped into some of the former players? I bumped into Jim Craig one night because they'll make routine appearances back in Lake Placid for various things. Have you ever bumped into a former player or anything like that in your trips?
Jim Craig, he was he was our ECAC guest for the tournament that year. And he spoke to every one of the teams. So as part of the pre-tournament banquet, he went to each team, went through his experiences. So the guy I run into a lot is Mark Johnson. He's the coach now of the Wisconsin women's team. So for about a 5-year stretch, it seemed like we were playing them all the time. So I talked to him quite a bit.
And Pete, Dave, just blurt anything out here because they're starting to flow now. Things are just popping into my head. So I don't want. I certainly I want everything out that we can talk about. But what about so? I mean, you and I can literally say when people go, "Hey, where were you when the game was going on?" We were there, you know. And I've never sat around and, you know, if I hear somebody talking about it, it's hard not to sit there and say, hey, I was actually at the game. And then you get that look like, yeah, right, you were at the game.
Yeah, you and 400,000 other people.
Exactly. Now
8,000.
and I was in the crowd, but you must, I mean, down in Florida, you overhear a conversation. Hey, I was a Zamboni driver for that game. I don't know if that's more believable. I just don't know. I mean, has that ever happened to you?
Yeah, who would make that up, you know?
In fact, last week I was playing golf with a guy, and he's a big hockey nut, and he said, and his wife was enthralled with Zamboni drivers. I said, I used to drive it. He said, no, you didn't. So then I had my little YouTube where they show that clip. And then I've got the tape, so I've got evidence now. So every time they score the winning goal, there I am sitting there clapping. So all I have to do is go to YouTube, pump it up real quick, and say, yeah, that's me right there. Although the hair was a little darker. So I do have evidence.
Oh, Steve, you're conjuring up some great stories and some great memories. Is there anything else what about 2 days later for the gold medal winning game? What do you remember about that?
The thing I remember about that was, everybody knows what a great coach Herb Brooks was, but that was his best job of coaching because they came in that Saturday and they were little fat cats. They thought they won the Stanley Cup when they still had the gold medal game to play. They came in, they were playing a little grabby ass, having a good time. He walks in that hallway. He grabbed the medicine kit, just flung it against the wall. Said, you guys haven't won anything yet. Get in there and get your skates on. And then boom, back to business. And that's when he really got him back focused because they could have lost that game easy and not won a medal.
They were behind.
Yeah, 3-2 going in the third.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great, and they had Craig Patrick was the assistant coach. It was really the good coach, bad coach. Herb was just, they come out for practice, the usual horsing around before he stepped on the ice and it was dead silence. And he worked them. I mean, those stories about him were true. He worked them hard. And Patrick was a good guy. He ended up being the coach or general manager of the Pittsburgh Penguins. He was a real sharp hockey man.
Well, and that immediately gets me thinking in the movie part, again. Like the lights are off in the rink again, down and back again. I mean,
that was his favorite word. I was on the European swing. They were over in Norway or something, and I had a bad outing, and he wasn't real happy with them.
Yeah.
So he just skated him.
And Steve, can you speak to a little bit about? He put that team together in a special way. Wasn't most of the players his at the University of Minnesota and BU players? Wasn't his goal to try to make the camaraderie really click?
They had some bad chemistry early because back then the West versus the East in college hockey was a huge rivalry. The West thought they were better. The East thought they were better. There was 4 or 5 BU guys and probably four or 5 University of Minnesota guys. But that took him a while to break that iceberg a little, and he did it, but it didn't come easy. They had fights in practice and everything else, but he molded them. It wasn't easy. He did a great job.
Well, Steve, I knew this 45 minutes or so would just fly by. This has been great to be able to hear this. You're going to make my father happy when he watches this. But mention, were there any, just before we wrap this up and say goodbye, any other local North Country people, especially sports related, anybody that you also knew at the game in any capacity?
Faye Peters and from Canton and A. George Davis from Potsdam, Clarkson worked the timers booth. Now you got to remember there's a lot of shifts, so that, you know, there was a lot of people doing it. Sandy Caligiuri, I think, was the only radio station that broadcasted the Olympics. And also Frank Bradish, who worked for me at Pine Street, came up quite a bit and helped with the Zamboni driving too. Good experience. Hard to, you know, if you were there, you understood it, but it was just a unique event. I'd been probably 2 Final Fours in basketball. I've been to numerous Stanley Cup finals. I've been to NCAA hockey finals. It's nothing comes. I don't say that often, but when I came back, I had a hard time watching a hockey game because it just seemed like the Pee-wees were playing. I don't know.
Where's the USA? Where's the USA chant? Come on, let's go.
It took about a month for me to get over that. You know, it was hard to measure up, I guess.
I bet.
I know.
Hey, just for real quick information there, Joe, your $56 in 1980 $56 ticket in today's money is $190.
Yeah, still a good deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would. If I knew that's what I would have been watching, I'd still feel like I owe more money. So.
Yeah. That's before scalping. That's before scalping it, though.
Yeah.
Very good scalp.
Well, Steve, look, we've been doing this for about 90 shows now and pushing a year. In fact, I'm not even going to mention why this show got started because we haven't even talked about it in this show, the whole reason this show got started. So the fact that we don't have to mention that word that's kept us locked up for the last year, to be able to talk about this and all these memories that you just helped bring back and supply to not just me, but to everybody that enjoyed that moment. It was really cool to be able to talk to you. And Pete and I have tons of trips to make, and here's hoping that we can sometime hook up when you're back up here in the North Country and do it in Placid.
Dave wants to go too.
But I can't go.
Oh, did I not mention your name, Dave?
No.
To Pete and I.
Guys pay too close attention. Well, absolutely, it's going to be all 4 of us. So
Okay.
All righty.
Steve, we're going to wind down. I want to thank you very much for coming on our little show here. I like Joey just said, 45 minutes went by just like that. It's amazing. And the stories I love the stories. I really do. It brings back a lot of good memories for all of us.
Pretty easy topic to talk about.
True.
All right, Dave, Pete, Joey, thanks for having me on. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks, Steve. That's gonna be it here on ESS Empire State Sports and the Wise Guy Sports Talk Show. For Joey Rio, I'm Dave Belt, myself, Pete Gosselin, and our special guest, Stephen Yianoukos, excuse me. Thank you very much for coming on. Good night, everybody, and stay safe.
Good night.